Hey, hey, hey. What's good? What's good? All right, y'all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, there we go. I think we set up. I think we ready. We ready, chat? If y'all ready, I'm ready. All right, here we go. So we're going to pick up where we left off from yesterday. Who was here yesterday? So yesterday, So yesterday we started off in a Las Vegas courtroom where one of the outlaws from Tupac's group, Mr. Malcolm Greenidge, Edie Amin. So he testified. It was, you know, I don't think it really made that much difference in the case, but it definitely gave us an inside look on what it was like, being in, Tupac's inner circle. I don't think a lot of this stuff makes really a difference at this point. It really comes down to, what you believe and who do you believe and when do you believe the person you believe, if that makes sense. Because everything that, everything that, like evidentiary wise, that the prosecution came into this with, it's still been that from day one. I mean, I don't really understand the infatuation with trying to connect the dots with Diddy. I think that just complicates things. Because you can't have a story with two motives. If you got two motives, you don't have a motive. It's like having a NFL quarterback. If you got two quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. Who's the quarterback? Well, I don't know, one of them. You don't have a quarterback. It's the same thing. You have one quarterback, that's your guy. You rolling with. That's the guy. He's the captain. That's the one. Same thing with a motive. You got one motive. And until this started with this whole uh Diddy linkage that sorry, this whole linkage that they're trying to make, these connections, that they're trying to make, they're not really helping the situation at all, because the story was clear. There was a fight. Even all the additional information, there was a fight, and then after the fight, it was revenge. That's simple. That's easy to follow. That's easy to understand. I know some additional information came out about that. Okay, well, what there was another event before the casino fight, so that wasn't just like where everything started in the casino, which most of us assume that's where it started. Something happened in the casino. Well, apparently something happened in LA, and then so the fight in the casino was actually retaliation, which, if we go back further, it probably was some type of event before the event in LA that they're talking about. Apparently there was somebody lost a chain, or somebody took somebody else's death row chain inside the mall. These factions have been, I'm sure, warring for years. So I'm sure it traces back further than that. If somebody else can respond to it, like, well, no, well, before that it was this. Yeah, we can keep going back and back and back and back. But as far as keeping this whole story kind of dumbed down enough, because we don't need all that. Sure, I'm sure with all of the feuds that Tupac was in the middle of, I'm sure that Diddy wasn't the only one. I'm sure Diddy wasn't even the only one that wanted something to happen to Tupac. After he hit him up, I'm sure you could have found more than just Diddy that wanted something to happen. Now, if he was willing to pay, but he never paid, or all this other stuff, yeah, I mean, That should have been established really before they got to this point. If that was the route they were going to go, not say, well, it was a fight, but also it was a that it just gets confusing. I mean, at least it's hard to figure out why. Well, why did he do it? And who was in, because apparently KVD is the mastermind, which that seems kind of hard to believe too. But I mean, I guess it's possible. But if this gentleman just got beat up at a casino, what is there to mastermind? What is there to mastermind? You mean to tell me that he didn't want revenge until Keefe D told him to? I think they're overcharging him for his involvement. I think he's clearly an accomplice with it, but he was the mastermind. If you're a mastermind, you don't need somebody to get beat up. You don't need provocation. If you mastermind a crime, you don't need some type of provocation after before the mastermind. When did he mastermind it? After the nephew got beat up. That's when that was the big plan after. So nobody else had any issue. Nobody else wanted to be involved in that. Only him. He was like, oh, let everybody listen to me. Follow orders. That doesn't sound like something that somebody who didn't get beat up is now the mastermind. You mean the guy that got beat up didn't mind he got beat up, and he was kind of either way about it. That's the story. Well, that would have to be the story for Keefe D to be the mastermind. Well, why would that logically make him the mastermind then? Because he's the oldest. He's not driving. He gave him the gun, which he's clearly an accomplice, but that doesn't make you a mastermind because you are an accomplice. I don't see the obvious connection that makes him the quarterback. He mapped it all out. He planned everything. Because did he know that they were going to even see Tupac out there? I don't think so. Did they know when they were going to see Tupac? Clearly, they were driving on the strip looking for him, but TVD wasn't even driving. But everybody would have to listen to him. Is that how it worked? Well, if that was the case, why didn't the first guy that got the gun, if that's the story that they're going with, why wouldn't the first guy that got the gun, if Keefe D is masterminding it, why, when the first guy gets the gun, why doesn't he shoot? He's giving orders. They have a plan being executed, planned out by the mastermind. Hey, you guy close to they on your side here, guy, take the gun, go for it. Why is he not shooting? How can he decline the direction from the mastermind? It don't work like that. And just so happens, by dumb luck, the guy who actually got beat up starts shooting. How about that? How does that work out? How does that work out? So Keefe D said, well, hey, the guy close said no, so since you got beat up, you should do it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't. Clearly he was there. Clearly he was involved. Clearly he has some involvement. He has some exposure in that. That's obvious. But why is he obviously the mastermind? Doesn't make sense. I think he's being overcharged. For what reason? I don't know. Make the case look better. They're trying to rope Diddy in to make it look better, but it just confuses things. So who gains from that? I don't know. They probably got the jurors like, what really happened? I don't know. Diddy was looking for him. He's working for Diddy, but then his nephew is shooting. Who knows what really? They giving him all this extra stuff to think about. So so back to Edie. I mean, he was on the stand, and he talked about his relationship with Pac that night, and just in general. And one of the first things that came out, and before anything else, that they had to get a court order, and they made it a point to really go into why he didn't want to willingly divulge this information, which that's hard for me to wrap my mind around. So wait a minute, that's your buddy, y'all tight, y'all thick as thieves, but you need a court order. You need a court order to say something. The prosecutor asked him about it like directly, and he said they had to get a court order they have to get a court order to get you here, and he was like, yeah. Like, well, why? What is that about? Anybody understand that? So that's how it started. It was like the man who was friends with Pac. They were like family. They, made music together. They was clearly, super tight. The court had to threaten him with jail time for him to go and say something on Tupac's behalf. And that's not even the worst part of it. The part that got me, he said Pac told him, like they had some close moments, apparently. And they were behind them the night he got shot. They were in a car behind, or a couple cars behind, when they got shot. So they were behind the BMW. They were headed to the club 662. And when the shooting happened, and then the car came to a stop at the intersection, so apparently he ran up to it to check on a friend, and he testified that Tupac looked at him and said, "Get on the ground. They're gonna shoot you." And Greenidge turned around, said there was the police officer with a shotgun in his face. So, a man had just been shot 4 times. 4 times. And what's on his mind is, what he's using his voice in that moment to do, and that's to warn a friend. That friend that didn't want to come there, to keep him from harm. So, it says a lot. Anyway, today's Wednesday, 26th. This is the Clout Report. I am Jay Cal, and I've been sitting waiting for this moment all day. But quick chat. Come on, y'all. Let's wake up. Hit that like button. And so I want to get to something out of this LA trial later. I still don't know about it. That's things got a little awkward there. But that's the Lil Durk trial. But let me give y'all the rest of this, because there's a lot in the testimony. So he came to Vegas for the Tyson fight, rode in with Pac and Pac's fiance and Alexis, and he never even went to the fight. He was waiting on Pac to call him, and the call never came. Then when they found out Pac had left the Luxor, They left too, but they were on foot. And he ended up in the car behind him somehow. So he testified the shots came from inside a vehicle from the back seat. But he also said straight up, he didn't see the shooter and couldn't identify who actually did what in that car. 30 years. I mean, that's a long time to remember that anyway, I guess. But reporting is a little loose in how he described the relationship, big brother, mentor, family, childhood friend, these type of things, in which direction it ran. It kept it general. He was not really that sure about a lot of things. And then there's a part that I don't think anybody's going to really talk too much about tonight, and I want to. He talked about what Pac was planning after that last album. He was saying that Pac wanted to start his own label. He wanted to put out an Outlaws album and have Death Row distributed. And he was talking to Quincy Jones about some business. So his fiance, for a lot of you who may not know, some already do know, but he was engaged to Quincy Jones' daughter. So that's the legendary music mogul. Daughter was real tight with Tupac. So it's unfortunate for everybody. So that's a 25-year-old man building an exit. That's somebody planning the next 20 years. Label, artist, distribution, real business with real people. And instead, we got 30 years of this. What a trade-off, huh? Now, the other witness I want to talk about, because this is where the case really lives. And we'll go right here real quick.
Approximately a year and a half.
Right. And in terms of how he passes, he was shot and killed.
Yes, you want me to tell you what happened?
Please.
Orlando Anderson was with his best friend, Michael DeRoe. They were at a burger stand in Compton. And across the street from the burger stand, there was a car wash. Orlando Anderson recognized.
So this is a retired gang detective for Compton PD. His name is Robert Ladd. And so he's given a little insight on what happened to Orlando Anderson after the fact.
Recognized the people at the car. There was 3 people sitting in the car, and he recognized one of them that owed him money for some narcotics that he didn't pay him for. So Orlando Anderson took it upon himself, and he initiated the confrontation. He drove up to the car and he exited with a gun. However, one of the persons in the other car, they had a gun too, so they had a shootout at the car wash. And then when the smoke cleared, Orlando Anderson was killed during the shootout, as well as 2 other people in the other car were killed.
And in terms of the 2 other people in the other vehicle, were they both Crips?
Yes.
So it wasn't a blood on Crip sort of shootout.
No.
It was just over money and drugs.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Orlando.
So, all right, hang on. Okay. So he testified that Davis was a leader of the Southside Crips, Compton, called a shot caller. Walked the jury through how that hierarchy works in gang culture. Then the prosecutor asked him a question, and I want y'all to hear it because this is like the entire case. He asked if those 4 people are in the car and shots are coming out of it, who gave the authorization? And that's what I'm curious about, right? Sorry, y'all, my computer is freezing on me.
Right. And in terms of how he passes, he was shot and killed.
Yes, you want me to? Orlando Anderson was with his best friend, Michael Duro. They were at a burger stand in Compton, and across the street, money for some narcotics that he didn't pay him for. However, one of the persons in the other car during the shootout, as well as two other people in the other car, were killed.
And in terms of the two other people in the other vehicle, were they both Crips?
Yes.
So it wasn't a blood on Crip sort of shootout.
No.
It was just over money and drugs.
Yes.
The Compton Police Department got swallowed up by the LA Sheriff's Office.
Yes.
And
no, they were closed.
Did you stay with? Did you sign on to the LA Sheriff's Office after that?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately how many of the Compton police officers stayed with the LA Sheriff's Office? Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry.
I don't want it to be like yesterday where we keep lining up with each other.
Girl.
And do you recall how many of the Compton police officers were hired on by the LA Sheriff's Office?
Now, we had shared a little bit about the swallowing up of Compton PD by the LA Sheriff's Department.
You call it swallowing up. I call it absorbed or whatever.
Right.
Absorbed?
Well, it would take, I could tell you in a couple of minutes, but it's really a 6-month long thing that happened.
We got
I can
time.
explain it to you if you want.
We got
Well,
time.
I mean, obviously,
No,
okay, then what was it that caused it?
it was the mayor, Omar Bradley, at the time was being investigated by the FBI.
Oh,
He found out that he was being investigated by the FBI, and he blamed our chief. Right. So what he did is,
right.
our department elected to do a vote of no confidence against the mayor, and this really pissed the mayor off.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he-
Anyway, so they're not saying KVD pulled the trigger, which, you know, they actually said he didn't do it. They never said that. what they're saying in this case is that on that night, nothing was going to happen without him saying so. So they don't have to prove he shot anybody. They have to prove he was in charge, which, you know, he was a shot caller supposedly, which is like a general on the street, but he also, according to him, the first guy he told to do the shooting didn't shoot. So what does that mean? He was in charge. If he was in charge, if he was truly in charge, the first guy that had the gun that he gave the gun to that wasn't his nephew would have had to shoot because he told you to shoot. That's how in charge works, I would think. So I don't think that you have the authority to say no. If somebody else is in charge, how do you say no? How does a subordinate tell you no? How does that work? That's the part I'm not understanding. How does it work for a subordinate to tell the shot caller or the supervisor, nah, I'm not doing that. And they're all riding together to go put in some work, as they call it. Nah, I'm just here for the vibes, man. I ain't really trying to really do nothing, no. Okay, well then, you know what? He's not in that kind of control then, because according to the story, the first guy he told to do it said no. So what kind of control is that? So does that prove that he was in control if that was the story? Because somebody else said yes. Now, if he's in control, he had to tell the person that got beat up to do it. That proves that he's in control, not the fact that he got beat up and maybe he wanted to do that. So I don't know. I really don't. Because that's asking the jury to convict a man on the structure of, like gang culture from 1996, explained by a retired detective. And the defense went right at it, right? So they went at Ladd's book. He wrote a book called Once Upon a Time in Compton with his old partner. And Ladd acknowledged that it was largely based on memories and that another writer actually wrote it, which who writes their own books anyway? Then it was after the evidence and there was a big search operation in Compton after, Pac got shot in 38 residences, and the defense asked about a hotel receipt and that listed on the property return. Ladd didn't have it. He couldn't say where it was. So it's all kind of mix up and mess. So you wonder, what does he really know? How valid is this? How true is that 30 years later? His story has some holes, which most stories would after 30 years. But this is not a story that he's gone on the record telling for the past 30 years. So I think it's a little different in Keefe D. If I'm being completely honest, I think it's a little different than Keefe D. Because I don't think he profited from this story in particular. He may have profited from his overall experience as a Compton detective, just talking about maybe what it was like overall. But Keefe D profited from this particular story, this particular incident that happened. So I think that's a little different, you know. So if you forget some details about a story here and there, but this was Keefe D's money making story for years. But 30 years, you know, for 30 years, you know, a receipt on a list and nobody knows where it is now. And of course, the defense is going to poke holes in the prosecution's stories and their witnesses. They're going to really make them look like they don't know what they're talking about. That's the job. That's the job. And when you don't have all your ducks in a row, that job is a whole lot easier. Whole lot easier. You know, there was a letter from the Excalibur addressed to Orlando Anderson. And, you know, they had that one. And that's the shape of the case. You know, it's some of it's theirs, you know, it's like I said, years ago, and 12 people got to decide if that little bit, if that's enough. Is it enough? We'll see. You know, if it was a friend of mine, well, let me ask you. I won't even say if it's me. If your friend was on trial, you showing up, they got to give you a court order. And I mean, that's not even Tupac on trial. You know, this is to get justice for Tupac. You know, if somebody harmed one of your friends, one of your family members, would they have to twist your arm to get you to come to court? So let's take a trip to Los Angeles, downtown. Lil Durk's trial. And the government's building this case with data. Apparently, an LAPD detective testified about how they identified the suspected shooter. And the way they did it, they went to a rental car company that rented the white BMW to Kayvon Grant. That's OTF Vonni. And they pulled detailed GPS records off of that. That BMW was seen following Quando Rondo all around the city. So this is not coincidental. They know what they're doing. Think about for a second a car, you know, totaled everybody. Not a witness, not a wiretap. The rental car's own GPS sitting on a server somewhere, keeping a record of every turn, every stop, every goal, every location. And this is the part I need the young guys watching actually to hear, because every car you rent, every phone in your pocket, every camera around the house you drive past, or every house with cameras for that matter. And you know, nobody's got to see you anymore. There's just too much other evidence they can use now. So you don't have to have actually a person to say, yeah, I saw him in that car. Camera's always rolling somewhere. Even if it's not a camera that's rolling, there is data being constantly collected on what we do. So no one has to say anymore. They also showed the Encino rental house booked from July 1st to August 18th. And the people there, the vehicles, the agreement signed by Durk's manager. And the jury heard a 911 call from an eyewitness. You know, and the defense pointed right at Vonni. Their position is that he's a central figure, and when the feds came for him, he traded up. He used the phrase "big fish." Durk's defense team included Brian Steele, the same attorney from Young Thug's RICO case. You know, worth mentioning, y'all recognize the name, I'm sure, right? Now, here's the thing I said I didn't get to, and I have to go back and forth on whether to say it or not. But, you know, those GPS records led investigators somewhere specific after the shooting to an In-N-Out burger. Y'all mess with In-N-Out? Anyway, surveillance video showed Grant, Wilson, Jones in the parking lot, and Jones, Lindsay, and Hester walking into the restaurant. The 21-year-old is apparently deceased in the car. Savier's Robinson, Lil Pap, took 4 rounds. One of them through his heart. He wasn't even who anyone was apparently looking for at that time. He was somebody's cousin sitting in the seat. And the allegation is that afterwards, people went and got food. You know, I don't have a joke for that. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I don't have a hot take for that. I've just been sitting with that, trying to process it. I mean, did they know? They must didn't know he was in that bad of shape, because, you know, that's not a movie. In a movie, there's a getaway, there's a music playing. In real life, apparently there's a drive-through, and they got to refuel before they do anything. And that's the thing about all this that I don't think we talk about enough. It's not big. It's not epic. It's 4 kids in a rental car and a burger afterwards, and a family that has to look at an autopsy photo of the next 4 months. You know, and then this is still all alleged. Let me make sure I throw that out there. This is all alleged, so this is still being sorted out in court, but we'll see how it works out. But it just seemed like it's a lot of evidence mounting up. It's all, you know, adding up. Anyway, in other news, Kanye West was supposed to have a concert series. Just 2 shows, but still in October of this year in St. Petersburg in Russia. Sold the 2 shows sold out in hours, hundreds of thousands of tickets. The city's hotels booked up, trains booked up to get in and out of there. And then the stadium put out a statement saying they never signed any type of agreement, and that concert or those concerts, those will not be happening here. The promoter came back and said, no, there's a signed contract, and we already paid the performer in advance. Reportedly, it's almost $18 million. Neither one of them has shown a piece of paper, but I mean, it's probably some truth to some of this, I'd imagine. Anyway, St. Petersburg Outlet reported the shows never got fully approved and got called off by somebody in Moscow. Now, everybody's running this as a joke, but even Russia doesn't want Kanye there. And, you know, it's an easy one. You know, that's understandable. But that's not what I see exactly. You know, I see a man who just ran out of countries. He just ran out of places to go. You know, this is why we don't really want to burn bridges. You know, at some point, we're going to run out of real estate. Eventually, you burn enough bridges, at some point, you will run out of real estate. Clearly, people want to see him. But, you know, who wants to host him? Who wants to have him? Who wants to say they signed off on him? You know, because it takes more than just, you know, ticket sales to make a show. You know, it's not just selling up tickets. You got a show. Well, this is probably one of the rare instances where you could sell a ton of tickets and still no show for one reason or another. And I think what it is that they have the leverage and they know that he can't go wherever he wants to go. I guarantee you, if Kanye was able to go anywhere he wanted to go around the globe and perform, these countries would likely not give him a hard time because he could just not perform there. Like, oh, I'll just perform here. But when they know that you need them more than they need you, they can say, well, hold on, nah, no show. Nah, no show. And maybe they work it out. Maybe it ends up being a show somehow because they got time. You know, if they get to it, if they hurry and get to it, they can salvage this maybe. Because that's what you got a month. They don't have a lot of time, but you know, if they can make something happen really quickly, they probably can save it. But still, what are the real demands, you know? So, you know, we talking about a guy who got shut out of UK, Poland, Switzerland, Italy. You know, all behind the anti-Semitism comments that he made. And, you know, he earned all the backlash that he's received. You know, I'm not confused about that at all. You know, nobody owns a stage, you know. But you know, then he lands in the last place that'll, you know, take him. And he finds out that, you know, there's some conditions there too. There's some conditions there. There's some conditions everywhere. You know, I think that's the real lesson about this. No matter who you are, there are rules for you to follow. And you can't say whatever because you have so much money and so much influence that you can just do whatever. You can't just do whatever. You know, or that there's a cost associated with doing whatever. And unfortunately, this is the cost. Doing whatever, saying whatever. And you know, it was somehow seemed like cute or something when he was doing it. And most people didn't understand, me included. We couldn't wrap our mind around why. Like, why do you need to do that? What's do you just want to? Why would you want to create these kind of problems? But you know, he said what he said and did what he did. I mean, but he doubled down, tripled down. You know, maybe after the first time he said something, you know, these way out statements. Maybe if he said sorry then, it would have been a little more impactful than, you know, you are saying, making these types of comments. Then you are making T-shirts and I mean, you are going completely. I can't even. You got completely mad with this whole thing. And maybe if he said sorry right when he said the comments, it could have been a wrap. But then when he doubled or tripled down, yeah, I meant that. You know what? Actually, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. You don't get that far and say sorry. If you say sorry, you better say it right when you did whatever it is you did. You don't double down, triple down, quadruple down, then say sorry. Well, wait a minute. you did all this other stuff to say that you meant it. Okay, isn't it okay if you say if you mean what you mean what you do, say what you mean, and do what you. Hey, that's all good, but don't change it now. Don't flip up now. So, that's the part where I think it's actually sad, to me that isn't just like a cancellation. We see celebrity cancel all the time, and it's that nobody around him is really, kind of protecting him. Protecting him, protecting him from himself. Because right now he needs a almost like a translator to kind of translate to the outside world. Like, no, what he meant to say was that's what he meant. No, don't listen to what he. No, I speak that. I speak that language. What he's saying is no. That's not. It sounds like that's what he's saying. No, he's not saying that. He needs somebody that speaks a representative or something that can really translate what he's really trying to say. Because he goes way there, and that is not okay. You end up in situations where this is just consequences. These are consequences for bad behavior. These are consequences for inappropriate behavior as an adult. So he's like on timeout. He's on punishment, kind of. And he has a product, a depreciating product at that. Because these shows, you can't do shows forever. You have a window where you can travel the world doing shows and making money. This is finite. You can do it from this time to this time because we are finite. We don't live forever. So you can't just do shows whenever, however. I'll do shows 20 years from now. Maybe not. Based on your health, maybe you can. Based on your health, maybe you cannot. Time will tell if you're able to do that, but it's not just given. So, that's my take on it. Anyway, famous Dex arrested here in Las Vegas. Domestic battery. Yeah. Lil Durk jail photo going around. He's bald now, apparently. TMZ said it's not real, though. All right. Don't spread it. It's not him. He ain't cut his hair off. The Game denies. Rapper The Game is denying the Kendrick diss claim in his new album, saying those bars came from his own history. All right. Well, if you're not going to stand on it, then, I'll accept that. It's not a big deal. If you're going to sneak this anyway, then, what's the point? So, big extra plug. Details firmed up on the Collins County booking. So apparently it was for DWI, marijuana, unlawful firearm possession. Oh. So he was drunk, had weed and guns, allegedly. So Keef of the Funky Four passed away last week. First hip hop group ever on national TV, Saturday Night Live, 1981. He was 64 years old. Y'all check that? Y'all know about that? They said he was 68 and got it wrong. But we do our research around here. Anyway, I keep thinking about the moment Greenidge described. Tupac shot 4 times in that car, and he looked at his friend and said, get on the ground. They're going to shoot you. He was he was still he was still protecting somebody with whatever he had left. You know, and then, you know, 30 years later, 30 years go by, and the same friend has to be in court ordered to come talk about it. You know, I'm not judging them. Well, I kind of am. I'm kind of judging that. Because I just wonder what kind of friend are you? You know, I don't know what he's been through. I don't know what it's cost him. I don't know what he's afraid of. You know, but I just wonder what kind of relationship is it when somebody has to force you to help your friend get justice? They have to force you. What if this, I doubt if it does, but what if this case hinged on his testimony? What if, hypothetically speaking, what if this jury was kind of on the fence, which I doubt if they are, but what if they're on the fence and they just needed one more person to kind of sway on one side or the other, and they needed Idi Amin to do it. And he was, no, you gotta threaten me with jail time, then I'll come there. It's like, wow. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Any questions? Leave them in the comments. Come on, y'all. Anyway, this is the Clout Report. This is Regroup. I'm J. Cal, your host. Please like, please share, please subscribe. We'll see you tomorrow, same time. Peace.